The Play Absolutely podcast with Dr. Sue Jennings and Dr. Andy Hickson.
Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the Play Absolutely podcast. Hi Sue, how are you doing?
Hi, Andy. I'm doing well, thanks.
Yeah.
Despite the floods, I'm doing
Despite
well.
the floods, you still got the floods.
And
Yeah.
non-stop rain.
Non-stop rain, yeah. So you're not talking metaphorically here and that you've got the
I'm
floods.
talking literally.
You are talking literally. Okay. Wow. So episode 16. And one of the things I did before we hooked up today is I wanted to find out the oldest reference to play that I could find.
Mm.
So I did a bit of research, and obviously play as an idea, as a concept, as a way of learning and so on, has been around an awful long time, and it's not just in humans, of course. You know, there's a lot of research done on mammalian play, so mammals, not just humans, engage in a variety of playful activity. But in terms of human, and the oldest thing that I could find is actually about 6,000 years ago. Long time. And I mean, obviously, the is not to say that play didn't exist before then, but there's no records of it. And the thing that I found is not a written record. It's just something that was found in Egypt, in sort of pre-dynastic Egypt. So 6,000 years ago. I think that's the 4th millennium BCE, I think, something like that. But they found in a grave this board game which is called Senet, 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 where you move pieces diagonally, I think, on a board, and the object is to get to one end of the board before your opponent does. So a game for two players. But yeah, so they were playing in Egypt board games 6,000 years ago. So play as an activity, as a playful activity, as a pastime, has been going on an awful long time. Of course, it's now used, the word play is used and evolved to mean many different things. And I think you've got some particularly good, well, maybe they're not so good thoughts on one aspect of the evolution of play. I think you termed it mischievous play. Is that right? Yeah, tell us more.
Just before we go on to that, Andy, just following up the board game in the grave.
Right.
That might be a whole area of interesting research of different things that are left in graves. Because I seem to remember that in a lot of children's graves were dolls.
Right.
So again, that would indicate some type of play with a toy, wouldn't it? So,
well, it might do. I mean, not necessarily though. I mean, you could have you could have a model or what we see as a doll in an ancient grave. It might not be the same concept of a doll that we would have nowadays in terms of a toy. It could be a representation of a member of a family or an ancestor or something like that to be put in the grave.
So we'd have to look at things like images and pictures at the time of whether anything depicted a child playing with a doll, for example.
Indeed. And if we're looking at images, I mean, how long has photography been around? You know, how far back do we want to go? So, yeah, an interesting piece of research. Maybe you should get some of your NDP students to undertake a piece of that research.
Indeed. Perhaps they could do that as an alternative to writing an essay.
Could be a
find
project.
out a historical fact.
Yeah.
But getting on to mischief, and I'm not sure if this is regional and just north of England, but because I heard about it in the north of England.
Okay.
That on the evening before bonfire night, which as we know is the 5th of November, to commemorate, if you can commemorate burning somebody alive, but it was when Guy Fawkes was going to set fire to to Parliament. The night
So
before.
history tells us.
Sorry?
I said, so history tells us.
Yes. But the night before, the 4th of November, is considered mischief night,
Right.
when people go out and play practical jokes on their neighbours.
Okay.
Which might be tying a flag to a tree in their garden, or turning something upside down, or I heard of one extreme example when somebody decided to remove the garage doors from somebody. So they went and just unscrewed the hinges and just took these garage doors down. I mean, or it might be, pushing a sticky bun through the letterbox, or.
Okay.
But the 4th of November, mischief night. So that was a sort of rather negative, playful thing, because you might do quite mean things to people.
Mean, but still funny. I mean, if people are still laughing, then that meanness is still within a regulatory framework. I mean, other examples I can think of that pop into my head are April Fool's Day. So where we're supposed to play tricks on people on April Fool's Day. You've got trick or treating, haven't you, with
Halloween?
Halloween, yeah. So
I think trick or treat has been imported from abroad, though, hasn't it? I don't think it's tradition, as far as I can find out. It's not traditionally from the UK.
Okay.
But it's been incorporated in certain areas.
I have going back to what you were just saying about mischievous day or mischievous night, and some of the examples you've given. A good friend of mine, actually, we don't so much now because there's quite a bit of distance, but we used to play a lot of tricks on each other. And I know, I mean, he tells me a few stories about recent things he did with his brother, and it's quite similar to actually something you just said. He one of the things was he went to his brother's house when he wasn't there and painted the garage door a totally different color when he came home. Oh, what's happened here? Another time when a trick that one of my famous tricks, the one that he found very funny, is I collected a whole load of these little polystyrene balls, that you use to fill cushions and so on, and I put them in a container with a piece of cardboard attached to the string, which was attached to the lid, and I filled that up with polystyrene balls. So the idea is when you opened it, the cardboard that was attached to the string would release and bring out all these polystyrene balls. And so I went to his house and got you a present, and he opened it, and I could just see that point where he's about to lift it, and he can see that it's a trick. And he has a split second to sort of go, oh, I'm not, but he in that split second, he was like, I'll play along. And so he did an extra big kind of pulling, and those polystyrene balls kind of spurted out all over his lounge. And it covered them. I mean, the floor was like
they get everywhere.
Was everywhere, and we actually spent the day. It was great, a great fun day, because it was like an old wooden floor, and these polystyrene balls are white, so you could see them, and it was a layer over the whole floor, and we were getting things like books, and I was at one end of the room, he was at the other, and I would kind of push the book and it would slide along the polystyrene balls to him. Just great fun. It was almost like it was on a bed of air, Anyway, we played long for that day. It was a memorable day, but his girlfriend at the time was crazy angry because when they tried to clear it up, it was almost impossible because those little polystyrene balls, they get stuck everywhere. And still, a year later, they were still clearing up polystyrene balls. So yeah, mischief making, it can be mean, but I think, it's like this idea of banter. When people exchange banter, as if they're both playing by the same rules and they're both having fun, then it is not so mean. It's when, I mean, I could be saying something, well, I could be engaging in banter with somebody and we could be having a laugh. But you could say the same things to somebody else and they could be hurt by that. They would find it mean and not necessarily have that same bit of fun. So it's context, I think it's relationship. But yeah, so Mischief Day.
Well, I must just tell you one extraordinary practical joke that was being played, that in the end they couldn't decide what the resolution could be, because a wife of one of the dons in Oxford, she was widowed and she was living on her own,
Right.
and had a pet tortoise in her garden. And a group of undergraduates decided to play just what they thought was a kind little joke, and they swapped her tortoise for one that was bigger.
Okay.
And then they thought, why, we could go on doing this. So every week they changed the tortoise for a slightly bigger one and a slightly bigger one. With this woman assuming at the time that her tortoise for some reason was growing. But they got to the point where they couldn't find a bigger tortoise. They'd got
I was
to
going
the
to say,
biggest
where
one.
they're getting the tortoises from.
Well, it was a time when it was legal to sell tortoises. I mean,
Okay.
now you're not allowed to import them. So they didn't think what they could do when they got to this biggest tortoise. So, rather ridiculously, they started getting smaller again
Oh no.
and went right back down to her original tortoise. But that was a rather interesting practical joke that
Over
didn't harm
time.
anybody, but was actually very puzzling at the time.
Yeah, quite bizarre. Wow. So any
So,
other sort of mean play that, maybe is masked, if you like, as play, but actually means something else?
well, of course, there are the practical jokes people do after weddings. They send you off and they've tied tin cans to the back of your car and painted stuff in lipstick on the windows, just married, and things trying to make it so obvious.
But is that really mean? Isn't that still having fun? It's sort of highlighting, a ritual, a sort of a ritual passage, so that, I mean, it's never happened to me when I got married, but
oh, it certainly
I would.
happened to me.
But is that not a fun thing? You're sort of driving away from the wedding, and it's all.
We didn't really want to be driving through villages with "just married" scrawled on our windscreens. I mean, plus making a horrible noise with clattering. The first thing we stopped in a lay-by immediately we could and cleaned the windows.
And cleaned it all off, yeah.
And cleaned it all off and removed the tin cans, and then we could drive away anonymously.
But you must have just had a laugh about that. I mean, just got married and people have played that joke on you. I would say that was fun. I wouldn't say that's mean. And it is kind of a rite of passage almost.
Well, why garage doors keep featuring, I don't know. But one rather mean that I think was mean was that, again, after a wedding, and the couple had gone away to the seaside, and some lads at the wedding went and unscrewed their garage doors and sent them to the hotel where they were staying. Can you imagine that?
Gosh.
Now that I think was mean.
Yeah, and not fun.
Exactly.
And expensive, I would imagine.
Well, imagine getting a pair of garage doors back home again. From the seaside to where you lived.
This kind of idea of mean play, I mean, as part of the playful process, could it be that part of play is sort of pushing boundaries, and particularly when you're younger, you're sort of in a variety of playful activities, sort of rough and tumble play and so on. You're sort of pushing boundaries, and you're trying to find where that boundary is. How far can you go before the game breaks, so to speak? Is that not part of play as well?
Sure. And I mean, quite a lot of mean play comes into bullying, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think a lot of bullying is masked as play. So it's a way out for the people that are doing the bullying to actually pretend that they were just playing, even though they were actually being mean and nasty
And
to
quite
somebody
quite a
else.
lot of mean play connected with food.
Mm,
There's
such as,
even a commercial that
right,
incorporates nasty play with food.
okay.
And
What, celebrating it or?
two teenagers finding opportunities to put chili in each other's food.
Okay. Well, that's a big thing now, of course, isn't it? People trying to eat the hottest chilies and so on. There's even a crisp you can buy now, so not a packet of crisps, a single crisp, where people are challenged to eat that crisp because it is so hot. Yeah. Yeah, there's a few of those online. So, all right, let's sort of rewind a little bit, not necessarily what we're just talking about here, but in terms of play and neurodramatic play. Of course, one of the central concepts is attachment. So when play, if it has its roots in attachment, what happens when this attachment becomes insecure or disrupted in relation to play?
Well, you see, what we base our work on in neurodramatic play is attachment isn't just this word that you think you know what it means.
Mm,
We actually say attachment is playful. That
right.
relationship between mother and newborn or early born is a playful one. And that's how you show attachment, is through playfulness. So when there's an
Okay.
absence of that play, or babies are expected to obey routines of just being picked up when they're fed, some of the researchers talk about 20 minutes quality time and then the baby must be left even if it
Mm,
cries. Whereas in NDP, if a baby cries, it cries for a reason.
okay.
And it could be that it feels lonely, for goodness sake, because babies are very sociable creatures. They want company, they want somebody there.
Mm. And
And I
how are you
think
going to know? How are you going to know why they're crying? It's just trial and error. Feed it first. If it still
it's I think
cries,
if the baby's been changed and had enough food and continues to be grumpy, it's usually a signal they want company.
mm,
Because we're programmed to want other people. We're not programmed to be isolated.
okay.
So why try and isolate babies from an early age?
Well, of course, isolation is a punishment, isn't it? Solitary confinement, for example. Mm. So, okay, isolation. I mean, you hear of some sort of cruelty stories, if you like, when people isolate children or babies, but it's not a general practice. You don't. It's not a normal part of parenting to isolate your babies or your children, is
On the
it?
other hand, there are some regimes that believe you can cuddle a baby too much and you can pick up a baby too much, which of
When
course
you
is
say
not.
regimes, what would you mean by that?
Well, various writers on parenting have written about
Okay,
having proper schedules and not going to babies when they cry and
okay, yes.
weighing them before they're fed and weighing them after so they're only fed this fixed amount of food.
Mm-hmm.
and not allowing them to feed again till the next time.
Mm.
I mean, over history, there have been various methods, sort of what they call sort of no nonsense, being firm, not letting the baby take control. There's always this favourite thing that you're giving in to the baby if you pick it up when it cries, when actually
Ah,
you're being human, for goodness
right.
sake.
Okay. So do you think, I mean, it is a relatively contemporary parenting technique, if you like, that's, as you say, being suggested in various parenting manuals or
Mm,
guides, that you should, if you're putting a baby to bed and it starts crying, if you keep going and giving it cuddles,
mm,
you're sort of giving the baby power to
mm,
keep on crying. Whereas what you should do is let it cry out, and then you're in control. But I mean,
mm,
what is all this sort of control business, and what is wrong with
mm,
being able to cuddle your children?
mm.
Um,
Well, this, I think, is this mistaken belief.
right.
And, articles will say you'll make a rod for your own back. The baby will always know that if it cries, you'll go to it and so on. But again, babies cry for a reason. They're not lying there thinking, now, if I scream, I shall get a cuddle. Um, it's at a sensory level at that age. And the more a baby feels safe and reassured and knowing that mum is there, the easier they'll settle and sleep.
So there is an argument in our current society. We're all very busy. We've got multiple roles, multiple
Mm,
jobs, multiple things to look after. That if we don't try and get some kind of control over, children crying, going to bed at a particular time, and that kind of thing, we're not going to do the other things that we do in our lives. So, how are parents able to get some what they call me time away from their children without doing some kind of control like
mm,
this type
mm.
of parenting?
Well, skipping part of your question
Okay,
initially, I mean, we've lived amongst people who take children with them to work.
of course, yeah.
I mean, it's quite a modern concept that you must leave a child behind and go to work.
Mm,
Certainly in the rural and agricultural industries, it's perfectly feasible to take children with you
yeah.
until such time as they go to school when you trust them to somebody else to look after.
Mm,
But I suppose if you're in the sort of job where you can't take a child with you, that's where you need to think about childcare
right.
and that transition, preferably to somebody in the family, a grandparent, rather than an overcrowded nursery
Hmm.
or an overbusy childminder. Because before the age of 2, a baby needs one-to-one most of the time, because that's where the attachment is formed. And it's only once a baby is capable of realizing you haven't disappeared, you've just gone out the room.
Right.
And that's a very subtle change in the brain. It begins about 6 months old.
Hmm.
You can test it when the baby will respond to playing peekaboo. But even then, it has to be a momentary disappearance. If you disappear for too long, they think you've gone. And when you've gone, there's distress.
Mm,
So it's all about this transition, say, from mum to another person. But it could be that dad actually has a job he can do from home. We still need to explore flexible ways of working.
for sure.
But if we're going to think of secure and solid parenting, we've got to address the attachment. For the first 2 years, crucial.
Okay, so attachment. Is it, I mean, we don't know how long the memory, or maybe we do, the memory of a baby is, because there's a lot of reports where very young children get separated from their biological parents for a variety of reasons, for a variety of reasons, grow up in another family, and are able to form attachments in the new family and not even have any memory of their biological birth or parents. So one could argue in that sense that forming attachments is a particularly easy process. It's something that naturally comes to humans, not something we need to work at, and maybe something that we don't need something like neurodramatic play to help us do that, because we just do it normally, naturally.
This is interesting, and I think it varies culture to culture.
Hmm.
I mean, there are cultures who wouldn't dream of handing over a baby until it could at least walk
Hmm.
to the care of somebody else. There are families where the generations and the branches live near together.
Right.
So there's always somebody in the family willing to look after a child. And do you remember that family in the village where we were in Malaysia? And they didn't have any children. And the mum came over to me one day. She said, Joe, it's very lonely without children. My sister's got 5 children. So I'm going to ask her if I can borrow 2.
Hmm.
And you remember she sent the log boat upriver to the village and back came 2 young children. And they were beautifully looked after, very happy with auntie and
Yeah.
uncle. And all was
Well,
fine.
yeah, indeed. I mean, we don't have the Temiar who we're talking about here in Malaysia. They don't have the same rules imposed on children and young people that we would have here in the West, and it's very common, as you suggest, for a very young child, even 2-3 year olds, they might choose to go and stay at another house for one night or an extended period of time, not because they've fallen out with their parents, but just because that's where they've chosen to stay for a while, and that's just accepted. It's not
And certainly, I remember your younger sibling, who was 7 and 8 when he was there. He used to join the other 7 and 8-year-olds, and as a group, they would decide whose house they wanted to sleep in that night. And it was all part of growing up. And by 8 years old, to have some confidence with your peers was actually quite remarkable. So, as I say, some cultures, I think, manage attachment in a strong, basic, healthy way. I think we've got so caught up in, on the one hand, the freedom of women to work when they want to, which is quite right. On the other hand, to see to the needs of babies when they have needs too. And so you get all the issues coming up, and are you going to breastfeed or formula straight away so that you can whatever. And I think it's become a sort of a battleground now, rather
okay.
than calmly looking, well, what are the choices?
What are the choices then?
And the choices are, first of all, I think employers should be much more flexible about maternity time.
Okay.
And one of the issues for women is they take more than a few months off work, they'll go back, if they can go back, at an inferior status.
Yes.
Whereas if we could guarantee that mum's jobs would be safe, say for 2 years.
Okay, but just stopping you there, an excellent point, and I don't disagree. But if you look at it maybe from an employer's perspective, if they say, okay, we value you, and yes, you're having a child. We'll give you 1 or 2 years off, paid or not paid, and we'll guarantee you returning. If they then leave that position open for them, and then the mother at the end of that period says, actually, I've decided I'm not coming back to work, that leaves the employer in quite a difficult position, because they then have to find a way to
But
fill
you
it.
see, a
Go
couple
on.
of things here, Andy. I think
Hmm.
the idea of rotational employment.
Okay.
So that because they're probably going to be more than one person at this, unless it's a very, very, very small business
Hmm.
that are going to at some point be having children. So you're taking it in turns. So you've got a job that you share with, say, 2 or 3 other people, for one thing. But what's wrong with actually having a nursery at the place of work?
Absolutely.
So mums could go back almost any time they wanted, and the baby, the toddler, can go to the nursery at work. She can pay attention any time she's needed there on the spot,
Hmm.
and everybody's happy.
Well, not everybody. I mean, I don't think I've told you this story, but when I was a dean at an international university, we won't name the university in Malaysia, as dean, one of the things that I introduced was a nursery for the staff. So we actually started a nursery within the building, ran by a colleague. And we didn't make it free, because the university said they wouldn't pay for it at all. They didn't block it initially. They said that, okay, as long as you're managing it and it's self-sufficient, then you can put it in. So we found a space within the same building, and we got somebody to run it. And in the beginning, they just did it on a voluntary basis. And then we sort of introduced a small fee for the staff, and it was lovely. They really liked it, but for some reason, politics in a small P, office politics. Maybe people were jealous. Maybe people were thinking, oh, it. For whatever reason, I mean, I never found out the reason, but people complained about the nursery, and it survived 3 months before we were told we had to stop it. So, yes, I wholeheartedly think that was a good thing, and the staff loved it when we had it in place, and it worked really well. And it actually meant that the staff that could have taken a longer time off, longer maternity leave, and paternity leave, actually, because there was some male staff there as well that had young babies and wanted to make use of it. They wanted to come back to work sooner than they needed to. But yeah, unfortunately, the powers that be wouldn't let it progress. And I never found out why they didn't want to ultimately. Yeah.
Yes, as you say, politics can rear its ugly head in the most unexpected ways.
Mm. But I think, yes, I think maybe that's, maybe that is a responsibility for employers then, is, if you want to employ people that, potentially are going to have children in the future, you need to think, well, that's a natural part of life, you know. It's how we keep going as a race of people, that maybe we should cater for that. But of course, that's going to cut into the profits ultimately, I think. Yeah.
Well, perhaps not so much when you think you'd have a happier staff, you'd have more motivated staff,
Mm.
and you'd be paying less maternity leave because people wanted to come back to work. So,
Mm.
what's more, you could offer courses the opportunity for student placements working with young children.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you wouldn't be just limited to a person. You could have several people there looking after children of all ages.
Hmm.
But I mean, it's not so long ago, Andy, that teachers were in schools weren't allowed to be married because then there'd be the possibility of babies and so on. So the stereotype of the spinster teacher was
Right.
actually something they had to do. So if you wanted to be a teacher, you had to decide not to get married.
Well, and of course, employment contracts up until recently, uh, part of, an employer might say, are you married? Are you thinking of having children in the next 5 years? But now you can't say those kind of things as an employer, um, under equality legislation.
Mm.
Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, though. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Yes,
Okay. So, well, we're well into the end, I think, coming towards the end of this edition of the podcast. Uh, any last words before we go on to our suggested activities that you would like to say?
Well, I think it's been a cautionary tale this morning to remember that play isn't always positive,
Play is not always positive. No.
and maybe we need to be alert to that when play goes out of control or breaks the borders or is disguised as play when actually it's something else.
Yes. Yeah, I think that disguise is something particularly to watch out for when people use play to mask some nefarious activity, like what you suggested, bullying, for example. Yeah. So, one of the things we do towards the end of each of our podcasts is to suggest an activity that people might want to try out if they're feeling the blues, they're feeling a bit down, or they're just out of sorts, or they just want a change of focus in their lives. So, what have you brought to us today, Sue?
Well, one of the most basic things for change of mood that anybody can do is to blow bubbles.
Blow bubbles.
Always have some bubbles with you, and you don't need to buy stuff. Just have
Hmm.
a pot with some washing up liquid, you know. But blowing bubbles, people think it's the bubbles that changes the mood. But
Right.
what actually happens is your breathing that you need to blow the bubbles.
Hmm.
So rather than doing a mindfulness exercise of breathing in through the nose and all of that, blowing bubbles, you're immediately going,
Hmm. Well, of course, breathing and breathing exercises, techniques is a well-known drama activity, drama warm-up. All actors that are worth their acting ability, I don't know what metaphor I was going to do there, before any performance will engage in some kind of voice warm-up, which, of course, will include breathing. And on that subject, I think something that maybe people don't think about as, again, as a warm-up activity or even a breathing activity, but an activity that I will suggest that's fun, it also works the breath, is tongue twisters. So, yes, being able to practice and say a few tongue twist, if I can say that, even the word tongue twister is playing with my mouth. So, yes, reciting tongue twisters can be fun, particularly if you're doing it in a group, but something you can do on your own as well. It's going to help your breathing. It's going to help calm any anxiety that you might be feeling, and really good activity to do before a performance, before a presentation, before engaging with or talking to a group of people, I think. Yeah. So similar things, blowing bubbles, tongue twisters,
Would
having
you give a
fun.
couple of examples of tongue twisters?
Now you're talking. Well, I suppose the most common ones is the red lorry, yellow lorry, red lorry, yellow lorry, red lorry, yellow lorry. Also, similar to that is the red leather, yellow leather. So red leather, yellow leather. I can say them pretty easily, but I have practiced those in the past. There are many others. Maybe we can come with a session of tongue twisters. You can try
and
your
vocal
hardest.
exercises
And
generally.
vocal exercises,
But
yeah.
the red leather, yellow leather, and the lorry are good ones to start with if you haven't done them before.
Playing with your voice. Okay, so it's been great to chat with you again, Sue. Thank you for that. Episode 16. For the viewers, if you've enjoyed today's, please don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to the channel. That will really help the algorithm. And I think we'll end with, don't forget to play.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks again, and see you again. Bye.
Bye.